Well, hello, Teresa. And of course, we're heading into the final week of September. It's been a fairly quiet month, quiet on a number of fronts. Not so much energy, but things like hurricanes. Every past season, with the exception of a few, over the past 30 years, I've been doing this gas price prediction. We've always seen the effect of hurricanes in the U.S. Gulf Coast having an effect on energy prices, at least short, temporarily or short-lived. We're now celebrating what, the 20th anniversary since Hurricane Katrina. That I recall sent gas prices up 15, 16 cents a liter. But we haven't seen anything. Much of the disturbances is in the mid-Atlantic, so not much in the way of infrastructure is affected. What has happened, though, is that we have seen prices for oil and for gasoline move up a little bit this week. Oil started the week off at about 61, $62 a barrel for West Texas Intermediates, now about, well, pushing over $66 a barrel. And that could mean higher prices, especially for diesel, which has gone up about 5 cents a liter across Canada this past week. And if you haven't seen it already, you're going to see it by Saturday and Sunday. That's normal. And what we do see at this time of year, while gasoline went down with the winter blend being introduced, diesel tends to go up. It's a proxy for cold weather. We use it for home heating fuel. We use it for jet fuel. It's also used for transportation. Trucks will run 24/7, diesel trucks, to keep themselves warm so they don't have to start up again in very cold conditions. So you can see where demand for diesel will start to go up. And across Canada, while we've seen diesel go up, we've actually seen gas prices fluctuate. So if I'm starting in Vancouver, Victoria is staying in the low 160s, down from 190 2 weeks ago after the Olympic pipeline was shut down for maintenance from September 2nd to about the 18th or 19th of September. That caused prices to spike as much as 30 cents a liter. That's because it is really the aortic valve, if you will, for all of the Pacific Northwest. And so prices have now moderated back to the 164, 165 range. Same for Vancouver Island. The same for, I would say, even interior British Columbia, which gets all of its oil, or most of it, from Alberta, including much of the gasoline to the Trans Mountain Pipeline, the existing one that's been around since 1953. That means that prices in some places like Kelowna dipped to $1.30. Now that was below cost selling, but they're back up to 140, 142, and I don't suspect that they're going to be moving much this week. Maybe a penny or two to the upside, but diesel will be the one to watch. Alberta, you've been getting gas prices for under $1.30. That's great. We've seen prices as low as $1.24, $1.23 in Edmonton, $1.26 with $1.27 in Calgary. There, it's really the fluctuation is the retail margin. Same for Saskatchewan, where prices never change. Wonder why. I guess everything's pretty quiet there. Goes along with the sort of flat land that we have. But hopefully, farmers there have been able to get their crops off the land and can now start to ease back a little bit, not worry so much about diesel. They will be worrying about natural gas and other means in which to dry their crops because we've had a bit of a wet summer, relatively speaking, out there. So that could have an impact for diesel and natural gas prices. Same for Manitoba, where prices remain in the 130, 135 range. Now, if we go to Ontario, we started off the week in the low 130s, 131, 132, now up towards 135, 136, up about 4 cents net this week. Same for Quebec, up towards $1.60, $1.62 from $1.58 last week. Maritimes, well, last week I mentioned they were ripped off because they have regulated prices. They didn't get that 10-cent dip that the rest of Eastern Canada did, even if the market showed that. No, you have to have an average over 7 days, or at least 5 days of market activity. So they finally got that break a week later. So anybody who thinks you're being protected and thinks in Atlantic Canada, I'm talking to you in New Brunswick, Halifax, Nova Scotia, PEI, and of course Newfoundland, if you think regulated prices are such a cool thing, well, in the past week you bought gasoline, you were ripped off 10 cents a liter. So next time you think it's cool and trendy to think regulated prices work, they don't. And there's a reason why the rest of North America doesn't want to have these things and they avoid them like a bad smell. So in any event, that may be unfortunate remarks, but they are true of those out there. And I've seen them who think it's a great little thing. It's never been a good thing. It's hot. It's really hurt consumers. And the highest price in Atlantic Canada is always the law. So what we're looking at now for the next week is the likelihood of oil moving up, perhaps another $4 or $5 a barrel. And a lot of it has to do with Russia. The fact that we're forcing Russia now to enforcing other countries with sanctions, especially U.S. sanctions. we're going to need a little bit more energy. And of course, Ukraine has been successful in its drone attacks and knocking out refinery capacity there. So it looks like Russia is going to be out of the equation for a while, even though some nations, like in the Middle East, are starting to increase or ramp up their production. It won't be enough to meet global demand. Now, many people have talked to me about the difference between Canada and the United States and prices there, and why, we tend to pay more here. Last summer, $2 a gallon averaged in the U.S. Northeast. That was at the market. This year, 2.30. Everyone want to know why the discrepancy of 30 cents a gallon, why it was higher this year. Simply put, while the Canadian economy is sluggish and slow and dwindling, the U.S. economy is not, and demand is very strong. Refiners are in fact keeping up, but they're charging a huge premium. And of course, here in Canada, we have to remember, yeah, you might have got the drop temporarily in the first carbon tax of 20 cents a liter, but you're not paying a second carbon tax, the clean fuel standard, which I warned people about 4 or 5 years ago. But I guess the attitude is elbows up and fingers in the ear. You can't put your fingers in the ear without your elbows being up, and that's precisely what a lot of people have done. But you're getting stiffed for 5 cents a liter. We're also seeing ethanol rise in terms of content in gasoline up to 15% everywhere. Refiners are having to buy ethanol in order to compensate for the ridiculous request that they drop emissions 30%. That's only not all the emissions, just CO2. Inert, life-giving CO2 is being taxed. And so the refineries, the only option they have is to buy more ethanol. That might reduce the emissions somewhat, but it also means it could have real long-lasting impacts for anything you use. My recommendation to anybody now using gasoline for chainsaws, lawnmowers, outboard motors, whatever the case may be, do not leave it in over the season. Make sure you drain it all out or burn it all out, doing what you have to do. Don't leave gasoline in your tank, because it's going to hurt the efficiency and the long life of your appliances. So at the end of the day, a little bit of advice, and don't forget, never buy your gasoline until after 6 p.m. on any given evening across most of the cities in Canada.